Hello, welcome to Wild Horse Writes. My name is Sandra, and today we're actually not writing. We're going to do Excel. So today we will learn the basics of creating an Excel macro. And you might ask, how is this related to writing? Well, I probably wouldn't tell you because it's mostly not. But eventually we're going to make a tool that will help you to write using Excel. Before we go that route, before we do that, let's go ahead and just start from the beginning. So what is a macro? A macro is supposed to be a program or code that helps you do your job or helps you accomplish the task in Excel or even in Office or Word more efficiently and accurately. It basically does the same task every time. That's not to say it works 100% because there's always bugs in programming, but in general, it's pretty reliable and it's supposed to make your life easier and not make you pull your hair out. So if you make a macro or you have a macro that does make you pull your hair out or make your hair gray, it's not doing its intended purpose, it's not doing very well as macro. The point of this video, at least today's video, is not to get too in detail about macros. I just want you to make a simple one to basically help you with your day-to-day tasks. So there's two books I have right now about macro making. So of course the one for dummies, which is what I need. But I actually like the tone of this book a lot. The guy is really funny and he gives you great examples. So I would definitely recommend buying it, even if you get a used copy. It's pretty good. It's a good read. I read that. Now, there's another one by Mr. Excel. It's definitely bigger and more detailed. And looks like they have a lot of stuff. I haven't finished reading it yet, so I have about halfway to go. But he's mean. If you have a fragile personality or self-esteem, don't read this. It'll make you upset. There's a couple of times where I'm like, this guy is so full of it. Does he know what he's talking about? Or he'll explain things with examples with advanced coding that you haven't gotten to yet. So he'll be teaching you how to copy and paste, but he'll show you how to use a loop. And it's like, you haven't done loops yet. That's 3 chapters from now. Why are you using a loop as an example for somebody to learn? Okay, I'm done venting. But yeah, I would get this if you want to learn specific things. Like, I bought it because I want to learn more about user forms and how to make my code and look on point, and also how to make more detailed objects and do arrays, because this book shows an overview but doesn't do that much. So yeah, so I got my baby book and I got my advanced book with the guy I don't like. I've never read a book that makes me really dislike the author as much as this Excel book, this one right here. I like this guy. If I would meet him, I would not talk to him. We wouldn't be friends. Okay, now back to task. Before we even begin to work on our macros, you have to make sure your Excel can let you create them. You have to enable the developer tab in your document. So you go to File, Options, then you hit Customize ribbon. On the right side, you'll see main tabs and it'll list it. So you click on Developer. Okay. And then that will basically enable your developer tab. Now you also want to make sure your spreadsheet is saved as a macro enabled workbook, because if you do all this work and you save it as a regular Excel sheet, it's just going to save your data, will not save your macro, and you'll be a little bit upset. So make sure you go and you click on, when you say save as, instead of saying Excel workbook, you want to say Excel macro enabled workbook, which we already have this saved because I prepared this document for you. Okay, now I want to again caution you, anytime you run a macro, you cannot hit the undo button. There is no such thing as undo when it comes to macros. So you want to either save your document, and I always encourage you to save anyways before you run a macro. So let's say you have 3 spreadsheets up and you're using this spreadsheet, but you use this one and you have this one on the side, and if you crash your Excel while working with a macro, whatever you have open is going to crash too. So save everything before you hit run. And don't move around, don't move things around while you run the macro. Like, if your Excel macro is running on a huge set of data, don't open a new Excel or start saving or do other things. Just concentrate on that and let it run. I've gone ahead and made a copy of my data set a couple of times because we don't want to mess it up because we can't undo it. Now today we're going to focus on recording a macro. You can always code one or write it out. there are some people who do not like recorded macros, mainly just this guy. But he basically looks down and goes, well, anybody can do a recorded macro, but they don't work. They're garbage. They're horrible. Nothing screams recorded macro like selection. The point of it is, he's kind of snobby. This is real life. Not everybody has time to learn coding, but people do have jobs to do. So record macro is a quick and dirty way of just getting it done, and most of the time it works just fine. There's no issue at all. Another good thing about recording a macro is you can actually learn from it. So if you don't know a bit of code, and this happened to me a couple of days ago, I was like, how in the world do I do that? Because I'm not a coder. I never went to school for it. So I decided just to record it and see how it was written. I'm like, oh, so that's how it's supposed to look. And then you can type it out manually, or you can basically modify how it looks and make it what you need. Also, if you do record a macro, you can always just go and clean up the stuff you don't need. Once you figure out how a macro works, you can go back and edit the recording one and just keep the parts you need. You cannot do certain things, like I don't think functions function well. Don't think you can do functions in a recorded macro, and you can't do like pop-ups and user forms and all that cool stuff. So you would have to code that. But like I said, if you just want to get the job done and you have the same report every day, and every day you need to make the first line bolded, then I'm going to show you how to do that today. So the Visual Basics button here is basically taking you to Visual Basics Editor, which is where you do your code. You can click this button, or you can do Alt F11. Don't be freaked out. This is just a demonstration. We're not going to do anything in here. That's how it looks. Let's close it. Everything's better now. Okay. Now, macros. This is going to be a list of your macros. Now, record macro is exactly what it is. Use relative references. I'm going to explain that. And macro security is basically where you decide open all macros. Don't do it. It's dangerous. Open macros with warning, which is better. And don't open any macros, which is kind of defeating the purpose if you're making a macro. So don't do that either. All right. Now, let's see. The first data set, again, is just going to be ID number, first name, last name, date of birth. I made all this stuff up. I don't know when Spider-Man's date of birth is, so please don't send me a hate mail because I got it wrong. I don't know Lestat's birthday or Jim Carrey's birthday either. I know I could look it up, but I didn't. I'm sorry. This is what it is. We're going to do our first recorded macro. Keep in mind, before you record a macro, it records everything. So much like this video, if I make this face, or if I wink at you, that's recorded. It's there forever. So if you're in here and you're making mistakes while you record the macro, it was recording your mistakes and your faces. But much like a video, like I may or may not edit it out depending on how it looks, you can edit certain things out of the video, and you can edit your macro once it's done. But why go through all that trouble when you can just record it in one shot? Alright, so let's go ahead and let's try to be perfect, which I'm probably sure I'm going to mess this up some kind of way, even though it's simple. We're going to try to make a recorded macro of us bolding the first row for this data set, so it makes headers to make it look nice. Alright, again, we click record. Now it's going to pop up and ask us to make a name, and as you saw earlier, I named them. I'm going to name it non-relative. And you can't use spaces, and there's a certain number that you can't use, I believe. But just try to make your stuff simple, make it words, and put underscores on it. So whenever you try to export it or give somebody the macro, they know what it is. Don't put GGG55800. Like, nobody knows what it is. Name it. Okay? You can make a shortcut key. So let's say if I was an accountant and I needed to do the same macro over and over again. Well, I'm not going to keep clicking the macro button or any button. I can just do a keyboard shortcut. In here, description, this one does absolute references. And absolute references, I'm going to show you in a second what that means. So it's recording. Notice how it says stop recording. Sort of like a movie when you're playing it, it has a pause button. But if it's pause, it has a play button. In this case, it's recording, so it has a stop button. So we're going to click stop when we're ready, but we're not ready. First, make sure you select what you want to select, okay? It's recording it, so I've selected A through D. Now, I'm going to click bold. I'm going to go back to the developer tab and stop recording, because it's very simple. That's all we want to do. Now notice how I recorded it. This one is not turned on, okay? Now let's go and just experiment with our data set. Now remember, I can't click undo for these once I run the macro, but I can manually unbold it, so it's not very hard to do. How do you run a macro once you recorded it? Where did they go? Oh my goodness, it just disappeared. My macro went to macro land. I can't find it. There's a few different ways. You can make a button, which we're not gonna do. You can always install something on your quick access toolbar, like this little pig up here I put on there. You can make a little button up here, or you can click on this thing that says macros, and it's a list of all your macros. So in this case, we're gonna hit run. I want you to show you. We're gonna just put it on A1 just in this demonstration. So here we go. I'm gonna go back to macros. I'm gonna click run. Magic! It turned it bold. So it did exactly what we want it to do. No fuss about it. Simple macro. Done. Now, let's try this again on G1 and see what happens. So we're going to click macros, and actually, before we do this, let's unbold this. I'm going to click on G because I want G to be bold. Let's do this. Oh no, move back to A1. Why? Well, because we didn't click relative references. We use absolute references. So a relative reference, what this is basically saying, I want you to record kind of sort of what I'm doing, but not exactly where I did it. So I want you to start in this first active cell, but then I want you to drag it over 4 and stop there. That's it. It's telling it the placement, basically the arrangement of what you did and the steps, but it's not going to put it exactly in the same cells that you recorded it in. So now let's try to record that again. Let's go back to our list. I'm going to unbold this thing here. I'm going to record it again. Now remember, you have to make a name. I'm going to say relative macro. You can put it all together. Put a, I'll just put, be neat. Put an underscore, say this is relative. All right. We always want to put a description, because if you are one of those people that names it 88800GG555, you won't know what you did and why unless you put a description. So now it's recording. And I have my relative references selected. I'm going to select this again. I'm going to bold it, and then I'm going to stop it. So we recorded it, the relative one. Okay. I want to go ahead and try to run it. So here's our list. Since we have more than one, I want to use the relative one. Now remember, I recorded this on A1. I'm clicking G1. I'm going to run it. Wow, look at that. It moved because, again, we told Excel, I want you to record kind of sort of around this area and do like this, and I want you to bold those 4 things, wherever it is. If I wanted to do it here, for example, I'm clicking in the no man's land. It's nothing. Relative macro. Look, it just bolded this section. So if I type in here, it's already bolded. So it basically, again, remembers, start wherever you put this cursor. I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to bold it. That's what we told to do. It's done. And if you followed those simple, easy steps, you just made your first macro. And pat yourself on the back. I don't care what these books say about recorded macros. It did its job. So now if I'm doing the report and I'm like, ah, man, I'm so tired of this stupid report. Every time I'm so tired of this report, and I'm going to get sick of bolding things forever. And run it. It's bolded. Now, think of all the things you could do with it. So again, it doesn't do functions well. It does do messages box, but it does do other stuff like highlighting. It does column width and size. It does data validation. You can record all kinds of stuff. So start recording. Again, use a data set you don't mind losing, or make sure you have a copy of it, because it will change your data and you cannot, let me show you. I can't press undo. I cannot go back. So have fun with it. Use a data set again that you can experiment, and try making your recorded macro. And then if anybody says it's not good enough, just turn your nose at them and say, do that exactly. Okay. Well, I think that's enough for today. Next time we will go over how to actually code this simple macro. We'll write it out. I'll teach you the basics of coding and basically how the language is read. And then we can do some fun like message bots and user form and put cute pictures of kittens in there. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have a topic you want us to cover or you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day.